Hi everyone, welcome to Azad Revenge Stories channel. Sorry, Marielle, but you're not coming to the Westbrook meeting. I froze. Presentation deck clutched to my chest as Raylan leaned against his office door frame. But my voice came out, embarrassingly small. I said, "You're not ready for this level." He extended his hand, palm up. "I'll take that." I stared at his manicured fingers. 48 sleepless hours creating this presentation. My breakthrough discovery that would save Westbrook $8.7 million in implementation costs. My detailed analytics that no one else had thought to run. But I found the cost-saving approach. My voice cracked. I built this entire presentation. Raylan's smile never reached his eyes. "And I appreciate your contribution, but this is an $8.7 million client. The executive team will be there. The Westbrook CEO specifically requested our top people." His eyes flicked down my body and back up. "I'll handle the big leagues. You're just not quite there yet." The conference room behind him buzzed with senior leadership. Men in expensive suits, laughing, adjusting their cuff links. Not one woman. "This was my project," I whispered. "I've been working with Westbrook for 6 months. Marielle." His voice hardened. "The deck." I handed it over, fingers numb. He tucked it under his arm like it was nothing. "Maybe next time." He winked and shut the door in my face. I stood there invisible through the glass walls, watching him distribute my presentation, watching him point at my slides, my data, my ideas. The room erupted in approving nods. And that's when something inside me, something that had been bending for years, finally snapped. "Hey, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm Marielle Mammoth, Marita Friends, which you guys basically are now. I'm 32 and until 8 months ago, I was a senior strategy consultant at one of the world's most prestigious consulting firms, the kind where people sacrifice their 20s for the chance to maybe become partner by 40. If you're enjoying the story so far, please hit like and subscribe. I don't usually share this stuff publicly, but what happened next changed my life, and maybe it'll help someone else too." So there I was, standing outside that conference room, watching Raylan present my work. It wasn't the first time. For 3 years, I'd watched him take credit for my ideas, interrupt me in meetings, and promote men who worked half as hard as the women on our team. I walked back to my desk, vision blurred, chest so tight I could barely breathe. Co-workers avoided eye contact. They'd seen the show before. I sat down and opened my laptop, muscle memory taking over while my mind raced. This was supposed to be my breakthrough moment. The Westbrook deal would have guaranteed my promotion to principal consultant. My phone buzzed. A text from Zara, my closest ally at the firm. He did it again. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Because in that moment, staring at my screen, I made a decision. This would be the last time Raylan Mercer ever stole from me. See, what Raylan didn't know, what no one knew, was that I'd been documenting everything for months. Every stolen idea, every inappropriate comment, every time he'd taken credit for my work, not just with vague notes, but with actual evidence. It started 6 months earlier, after he presented my analysis on the Faraday account as his own. That night, I'd gone home and cried until I couldn't breathe. Then I'd opened a new document and started recording dates, times, witnesses. It was just for me at first, proof I wasn't crazy, that these things were really happening. But then I got smarter. I began blind copying myself on emails before he deleted them, recording meetings on my phone, keeping meticulous documentation of my original work with timestamps, creating digital paper trails that prove authorship. The Westbrook presentation. I'd emailed an encrypted copy to my personal account at 5:42 that morning with complete documentation of my process and findings. I'd even embedded hidden metadata tags in the PowerPoint file itself. As I sat at my desk that morning, watching through the glass as Rail gestured enthusiastically with my slides, I realized I'd been preparing for this moment without even knowing it. I opened my personal email and found the message I'd been avoiding for weeks, a LinkedIn request from Kendra Tamura, the VP of Operations at our biggest competitor. She'd been trying to poach me for months. "Let's have coffee," I typed. "I'm finally ready to talk." 3 days later, I sat across from Kendra at a cafe 12 blocks from my office far from the usual consultant haunts. "I've been watching your work for a while," she said, stirring her latte. "The Faraday approach had your fingerprints all over it, not Raylan's." I nearly choked on my coffee. "How did you know?" Her smile was knowing. "Because I've been in your position. And because Raylan isn't smart enough to develop that kind of multi-phase implementation strategy." She leaned forward. "We need someone like you, someone who sees the angles others miss." "I have a non-compete," I said, "which is void if you're terminated without cause." Kendra set down her spoon. "Or if you can prove constructive dismissal due to a hostile work environment." My heart raced. I didn't say anything about who didn't have to. Her eyes were kind but shrewd. "Look, I've been in this industry 20 years. I know what happens to women who do the work, while men like Raylan take the credit. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" What was I going to do about it? The question haunted me for days afterward. I could leave, take Kendra's offer, start fresh. But something in me rebelled against that solution. Why should I be the one to leave? Why should Raylan continue his career unscathed while I had to rebuild mine? No, there had to be another way. The answer came from an unexpected source. Elise Voorhees, the quiet paralegal from legal who sat 2 floors below me. We weren't friends exactly, but we'd chat in the elevator or break room. That day she found me in the office kitchen staring blankly into my cold tea. "You okay?" she asked, reaching around me for a mug. "Fine," I lied automatically. She studied me while the Keurig gurgled. "No offense, but you look like I did when Trevor from tax was sexually harassing me last year." I blinked. What happened with Trevor from tax? "He's gone now." She shrugged, stirring creamer into her coffee, but not because I reported him to HR. Something in her tone made me pay attention. "What did you do?" Elise glanced around the empty kitchen and lowered her voice. "I built a case first, documented everything, found other women he'd harassed. Then, instead of going to our useless HR department, I took it to Vivian Larkin, the board member," I whispered, shocked. Elise nodded. The only female board member who it turns out had experienced similar treatment when she was coming up in the industry. Trevor was gone within a week. My mind raced with possibilities. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've seen how Raylan treats you, and I've seen that look in your eyes before." She took her coffee and headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and if you ever need access to certain internal communications, my desk is in the back corner of the legal department. I'm usually there until 7. I stood frozen long after she'd gone, my tea forgotten. That conversation changed everything. I'd been thinking too small. Individual incidents, personal slights. I needed to zoom out and see the bigger picture. Raylan wasn't just undermining me. His behavior was part of a systemic issue at the firm. And if I could prove that over the next weeks, I became a woman possessed. By day, I performed my job perfectly, avoiding Raylan when possible, playing the dutiful employee when not, but every other moment was dedicated to building my case. I spoke with 5 former female employees who'd left the firm after working with Raylan. Each shared similar experiences, stolen ideas, undermined presentations, passed over for promotions that went to less qualified men. 3 agreed to provide written statements through Zara, who worked closely with the finance team. I obtained redacted compensation data showing the pay gap between male and female consultants at the same level, with the gap widening significantly in departments Raylan oversaw. And with Alicer's silent help, I gained access to something even more damning: internal communications about my own performance reviews, emails where Raylan had changed manager feedback, removing positive comments, and adding criticisms not in the original assessments. But the crown jewel came 3 weeks after the Westbrook meeting. I'd been deliberately keeping a low profile, making Raylan think I'd accepted my place. Then I heard through office gossip that the Westbrook CEO, Amara Chen, was unhappy with some aspects of the implementation. I took a calculated risk and reached out directly, positioning it as a routine follow-up. "Actually, I'm glad you called," Amara said when we connected. "There are several questions about the cost-saving approach that your colleague couldn't adequately address." Your colleague, not you. She had no idea I developed the entire strategy. I swallowed my bigness. "I'd be happy to clarify anything you need that would be helpful. The multi-phase implementation timeline, was brilliant, but we need more detail on the back-end integration to justify the upfront investment to our board. For the next 40 minutes, I walked her through the strategy. My strategy answering questions Raylan couldn't because he'd only memorized the presentation, not created it. "This is exactly what we needed," Amara said finally. "You clearly understand our business in a way your colleague doesn't. I wish you'd been in the pitch meeting." "So do I said before I could stop myself." "A pause. Were you not invited?" "That's surprising given your obvious command of the material." I hesitated, standing at a crossroads. The professional response would be to gloss over it, maintain company solidarity, but I was done being professional at the expense of my dignity. "Actually, Miss Chen, I developed the entire strategy and created the presentation, but was told I wasn't ready for that level of client interaction." The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. "I see," she finally said, her voice carrying a new edge. "That's illuminating. Would you be available for lunch tomorrow? There are some aspects of this partnership I'd like to discuss directly with you." That lunch changed everything. I won't share what was said. Confidentiality still matters to me. But I left with two things: Amara Chen's personal commitment to work directly with me on the Westbrook implementation, and a recording of our entire conversation where she explicitly valued my work and questioned why I hadn't presented it myself. I now had everything I needed: the documentation, the testimonials, the proof of pattern and practice, the client relationships Raylan claimed were his alone. But I still needed the right moment, the right audience, the right approach to ensure this wouldn't be dismissed as one disgruntled employee's complaint. That opportunity came faster than I expected. The quarterly all-hands meeting was scheduled for the following week. The entire leadership team would be there, including the board. Raylan would be presenting the quarter's wins, including the Westbrook acquisition he'd claimed credit for. The night before, I couldn't sleep. This would either be the professional end of me or the beginning of real change. There would be no middle ground. I got to the office at 6:30 a.m., hours before the 9:00 a.m. meeting. My hands shook as I connected my laptop to the presentation system in the main conference room and checked that everything worked perfectly. Then I took a seat in the back corner and waited as the room gradually filled. Raylan arrived last, of course, striding in with the confidence of a man who has always had things go his way. He nodded to the senior partners, ignored the rest of us, and took his place at the front of the room. "Before we begin," he announced, "I want to highlight our biggest win this quarter, the Westbrook acquisition, which will bring in $8.7 million in the first year alone." He clicked to the first slide, my slide, and began presenting my work as his own again. But this time I was ready. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear his words. Everything hinged on the next few moments, on my courage, on 8 months of meticulous preparation. I took a deep breath, opened my laptop, and placed my finger over the Enter key. I pressed Enter. The screen behind Raylan flickered. His confident smile faltered as he turned to see what had happened. Instead of the next slide in his presentation, the screen now displayed a simple title: "The Real Story Behind the Westbrook Acquisition." Factor. Raylan fumbled with his clicker, but nothing happened. I'd locked him out of the system. "I apologize for the interruption," I said, rising from my seat. My voice sounded stronger than I felt. "But I believe the leadership team deserves to know the truth about the Westbrook deal, and about a pattern of behavior that's been costing this company talent, innovation, and integrity." The room went dead silent. I could feel every eye on me as I walked to the front, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. The senior partners' expressions ranged from annoyed to curious. The CO, Julian Fayers, leaned forward with narrowed eyes. "Mariel, this is completely inappropriate," Raylan hissed, trying to block my access to the presentation computer. "What's inappropriate is claiming credit for other people's work," I replied loud enough for everyone to hear. I turned to the room. "I've prepared a brief presentation with evidence I believe the board needs to see." "This is ridiculous," Raylan sputtered, looking to the partners for support. "Julian, we should continue with the scheduled agenda." Julian studied me for a moment, then said, "You have 5 minutes, Miss Namath." Raylan's face contorted with disbelief as I took his place at the podium. 3 years ago, I joined this firm with the understanding that hard work and results would be recognized and rewarded. I began, "That has not been my experience, nor the experience of many women who've worked under Rayon Mercer's leadership." I clicked to the next slide, which displayed a timeline of the Westbrook project with documented evidence of my contributions, emails, meeting notes, tracked changes in documents showing my authorship. The Westbrook strategy, which will indeed bring in $8.7 million, was developed entirely by me over 6 months of client research and analysis. I was deliberately excluded from the final presentation to the client. Raylan tried to interrupt, but I continued, my voice steady. "This isn't an isolated incident." I clicked to the next slide, showing a pattern of similar situations. 5 projects where my work had been presented by Raylan without attribution. I have statements from 3 former employees describing similar experiences. Another click and redacted testimonials appeared on screen and data showing that women in departments under Mr. Mercer's leadership are consistently paid less and promoted less frequently than their male counterparts, with similar performance reviews. The room had gone from uncomfortable silence to stunned attention. Several board members were taking notes. Most significantly, I continued, bringing up the final slide. I have documentation showing that Miss Mercer deliberately altered my performance reviews to remove positive feedback and add criticisms that weren't in the original assessments. A murmur rippled through the room. Julian's face had gone stone cold. "But don't take my word for it," I said, clicking again. "Take Amara Chen, the CEO of Westbrook." The audio recording began to play. Amara's voice filled the room. "I want to be clear. The strategy Marielle Nemeth developed is the sole reason we proceeded with this partnership. When I learned she wasn't even invited to present her own work, I had serious concerns about how your firm operates and who actually delivers the expertise we are paying for." Raylan's face had drained of all color. "This is you recorded a client without permission. This is a violation of Miss Chen consented to this recording specifically to address this situation." I interrupted. "She's requested that I be the exclusive point of contact for Westbrook moving forward, regardless of my position at this firm." I looked directly at Julian and the board members. "I've compiled all this evidence along with statements from current and former employees in a comprehensive report. You have decisions to make about Mr. Mercer's leadership, about the culture of this firm, and about whether I still have a place here." I disconnected my laptop and gathered my things. "Thank you for your time. I'll be in my office if you have questions." As I walked out, the room erupted behind me. I kept my eyes forward, not looking back at Raylan or anyone else. My hands were shaking, but I'd done it. After years of diminishment, of swallowing my pride, of watching my work become someone else's success, I'd finally spoken the truth. Zara caught up with me in the hallway, eyes wide. "Holy Mary, that was the most baddest thing I've ever seen." I managed a shaky smile. "Either the bravest or stupidest moment of my career. No matter what happens next, I'm buying you drinks tonight," she said, squeezing my arm before hurrying back to the meeting. I made it to my office and closed the door, then practically collapsed into my chair. The adrenaline crash hit hard. I just risked everything. My job, my reputation, my career. I alternated between feeling powerful and terrified for the next 2 hours as I tried to focus on regular work. Then my phone rang. It was Julian's assistant. "The CEO would like to see you in the boardroom immediately." The walk back to the boardroom felt like a dream. People stared as I passed. News traveled fast. When I entered, I found Julian, 3 board members, including Vivian Lynn and our general counsel. No Raylan. Julian gestured for me to sit. His expression gave nothing away. "Miss Nemeth," he began, "we've reviewed your materials and had several difficult conversations in the last 2 hours." He paused. "I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention, though I wish it hadn't required such dramatic measures." I sat perfectly still waiting. "Raylan Mercer has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation," Julian continued. "Based on what we've already confirmed, I don't expect him to return." My breath caught in my throat. "We are engaging an external firm to audit our promotion practices, compensation structures, and leadership culture," he said. "Vivian will be heading that initiative. Vivian Larkin nodded at me. Your courage today has forced a necessary reckoning, she said quietly. As for your position, Julian continued, we'd like you to take over the Westbrook account officially with a promotion to principal consultant, effective immediately. The relief was so intense I nearly laughed. Thank you, I managed. Don't thank me, Julian said grimly. This should have been addressed long before it reached this point. We failed you and others. He looked me directly in the eyes. It won't happen again. I left that meeting in a daze. By the end of the day, Raylan had been escorted from the building. By the end of the week, 2 other managers with similar histories were also gone. Within a month, the external audit had led to retroactive compensation adjustments for 17 employees, 15 women, and 2 men of color. The most stunning moment came 6 weeks later when I received an email from Raylan. It was brief. I've been asked to write this as part of my separation agreement. I acknowledge that I presented your work as my own on multiple occasions, including the Westbrook project. I apologize for taking credit for your ideas and for blocking your advancement. The success you've achieved was earned entirely through your own merit. I stared at those words for a long time. They weren't enough. Nothing could be enough to make up for years of stolen opportunity. But they were something I never thought I'd see. Raylan Mercer admitting he was wrong. The aftermath wasn't all triumph and vindication. Some colleagues avoided me, uncomfortable with what I'd done. Others called me a whistleblower behind my back, sometimes as a compliment, sometimes not. But something fundamental had shifted. In meetings, I noticed men making sure women were acknowledged for their contributions. I saw junior staff being invited to client presentations they would have been excluded from before. And I saw 3 women promoted to leadership positions within 6 months. As for me, I stayed at the firm for exactly 1 year after that day, leading the Westbrook account to record-breaking success. I mentored junior women and spoke openly about what had happened when asked. I built my reputation on my own terms. Then Kendra Temuro called me again. I heard what you did, she said. That took guts. Thanks, I replied. Things are better here now. And sure they are, she said. But I'm not calling to poach you anymore. I'm calling to offer you a partnership. I sat up straighter. A partnership. We're launching a new division focused on ethical business transformation, she explained, helping companies identify and correct exactly the kind of issues you exposed. We need someone who's lived it, who has both the analytical skills and the moral courage to lead it. That's you, Marielle. I thought about it for all of 2 seconds. When can we talk details? That was 18 months ago. Today, I lead a team of 14 consultants who work with companies to transform toxic workplace cultures. We've helped over 20 organizations identify and address patterns of discrimination, harassment, and credit stealing. We've facilitated the promotion of over 100 women and people of color into leadership roles. And Raylan, last I heard, he's working at a much smaller firm, several steps down the prestige ladder. The reference letter from his former employer was notably brief. The most meaningful moment came 3 months ago when a junior consultant on my team stopped me after a client meeting. I need to tell you something, she said, twisting her hands nervously. What's wrong, dear? I asked. Nothing's wrong, she replied. I just wanted you to know. I applied to work with you specifically because I heard your story. At my last job, my manager was doing the same thing to me that Raylan did to you. I was ready to leave the industry entirely. Her eyes met mine, but then I heard about what you did, how you fought back. It gave me courage to try one more time, but somewhere I could be valued. She smiled. I just wanted to say thank you. That's when I understood my revenge wasn't just forcing Raylan to face consequences. It wasn't just claiming my rightful position or even changing one company's culture. The real revenge was breaking the cycle, creating space for other women to succeed without having to fight the battles I fought, building something better than what I had torn down. So that's my story. Not the sanitized version I tell at conferences, but the raw truth of how I destroyed a man's career to save my own and ended up saving others in the process. If you've stayed with me this long, thank you. If anything in this story resonated with you, if you've ever had your work stolen, been told you're not ready while watching less qualified people advance, or struggle to be heard in rooms where you belong, please know you're not alone. Hit like if this story meant something to you. Subscribe if you want to hear more about building workplaces where everyone's contributions are valued. And please, please comment with your own experiences. The more we share these stories, the harder they become to ignore. Because here's what I learned through all of this. Speaking truth isn't career suicide. Silence is. Nor work matters. Nor voice matters. And sometimes the most professional thing you can do is refuse to be professional about injustice. I'm Mariel Nemeth, and this is just the beginning of what we can build together. I invite you to subscribe to the Azad Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and support me further by hitting the like button so the story in this video can be heard by many more people. Thanks to all.